The average asking price in the country in January was nearly $2,000. That's up 10% from this time last year.
Describe the current state of Canada's low-cost rental market. Well, it would be difficult, but words like depressing and awful come to mind first.
If you're looking for a place to rent in Canada, good luck. In January of this year, average rent in Vancouver surged to around $2,700, followed by Toronto and various Greater Toronto Area communities at an average of $2,500. Not only are prices now through the roof, availability is also at record lows. A stunning 94% of Canadians say rental prices are a serious concern for them, and 67% say the country needs stricter rent regulation. In this video, we're taking a look at Canada's out-of-control rental situation, with lack of rent control, rent-evictions, and low-quality, overcrowded options becoming the norm. The current situation for those without much money, living in a hallway with a sleeping bag, or out on the streets in one of the many needle-strewn Trudeau towns, now proliferating across the country. What's behind this overwhelming rent-pocalypse, and what can be done about it? Record levels of immigration have contributed directly to the rising cost of housing and rental prices. While various factors contribute to housing cost escalation, including increased insurance and maintenance expenses as well as red tape regulatory hurdles, immigration remains a significant factor, exacerbating structural supply constraints. A larger influx of newcomers intensifies pressure on housing vacancies, driving up house prices and rents. The Liberal government's decision to boost the annual permanent resident target and surge in non-permanent residents have significantly contributed to population growth. The housing crunch in Canada is not only worsening financial strain on families, but also contributing to spiraling household debt and increasing financial uncertainty as more people become housing insecure and end up in shelters or extremely unsafe and poor rental situations. There are profound and understandable concerns about what's going on among renters, with a recent survey showing just how bad it is. An overwhelming 94% of respondents perceive the surging rental costs in Canada as a serious problem, while 86% express deep apprehension about the scarcity of affordable rental properties. These concerns are particularly strong among individuals aged 51 to 65 and those aged 66 and above, with 97% and 98% respectively, highlighting the severity of the issue. Furthermore, 86% of renters express worry about housing affordability, with 69% noting an escalation in these concerns in recent months. This escalating anxiety underscores the formidable barriers faced by potential homeowners, particularly those with limited incomes, highlighting the urgency of addressing the crisis at its core. A substantial 77% of low-income renters say it has been harder to find affordable rental properties over the past year, exacerbating the already arduous task of securing stable housing. Financial fragility is pervasive among low-income renters, with 62% describing their household finances as poor. This vulnerability is most pronounced among individuals aged 51 to 65, where 73% report dire financial circumstances. Moreover, 77% of renters earning $50,000 or less live paycheck to paycheck, struggling to meet basic expenses. This precarious financial situation is especially prevalent among individuals aged 35 to 50 and 51 to 65, highlighting the widespread economic instability within this demographic. These are Canada's elderly people who should be getting ready to enjoy their golden years, and instead being forced into horrible living situations with exorbitant rents that vacuum up every last cent they have. 3 out of 4 renters fear potential rent increases, while 57% worry about the possibility of losing their current rental units. These anxieties underscore the vulnerability of low-income renters to changes in rental costs, with eviction looming as worst-case scenario. This also relates to the issue of rent-eviction, which is becoming increasingly common. Rent-eviction merges renovation and eviction to describe situations where rental tenants receive eviction notices not due to any breach of rental terms on their part, but because landlords supposedly aim to renovate the property. The landlord's real intention is to raise the rent and get rid of the tenant. In British British Columbia, for example, rent increases are capped at 2% per year with the same tenant. However, once a tenant vacates, landlords can establish a new, higher base rent for the next occupant. The pretext of needing renovations became so prevalent that renoviction entered common speech, reflecting a concerning trend in an already volatile rental market. It is crucial for renters to acquaint themselves with their rights and those of their landlord, as outlined in the rental agreement. The fact of the matter is that many renovations can be undertaken without terminating a tenancy. Tasks like painting, floor replacement, or installing new cabinets can be completed while the unit is occupied, albeit with temporary inconvenience. However, if renovations render the dwelling unsafe or deprive it of essential services, eviction may become necessary. As inflation spins out of control, prices continue to go up, and the gulf widens between homeowners and renters. It's important to remember that this isn't an abstract or purely statistical subject. Canada's rental crisis is hitting real Canadians very hard. Some of the tragic stories out there are enough to make anyone enraged, with renters having their rents raised hundreds of dollars per month without notice, and landlords finding ways to get rid of tenants who try to stand up to illegal and greedy actions. In regions with rent regulation, deficiencies and loopholes often incentivize landlords to evict tenants in order to put in rent hikes. In Toronto, for example, some renters have received rent increases surpassing legal limits and are told they will be evicted if they don't pay up. In British Columbia, where rents between tenancies are unregulated, new renters face over 30% higher costs than last year, and it's only continuing to get worse. Despite temporary measures like rent caps in Nova Scotia and Yukon, rent evictions and fixed-term leases persist, displacing tenants. In Manitoba, landlords exploit loopholes for significant rent hikes, and similarly in Prince Edward Island, landlords rushed for steep increases before caps came into effect, forcing tenants to consider relocation due to unaffordable rents. Let's be honest, when affordable options dwindle, renters have to put up with precarious and often unsafe housing conditions, including mold, structurally unsound buildings, and crowded, socially unsafe buildings and situations. Measures to alleviate this pressure include capping student permits for the next 2 years and allocating funds to the Housing Accelerator Fund, aiming to streamline development approvals and foster more housing construction. But the situation is still terrible. Canadians are literally renting one bed of a bunk bed in shared rooms with strangers, and listings have been going up of bedrooms inside a bathroom or a kitchen. From Montreal to Vancouver, the country is increasingly seeing rents skyrocket so high that those who do not rent standard and comfortable accommodations have little money left for anything other than bare necessities. The rising cost of energy doesn't help either, nor does the skyrocketing price of food. Forget ever owning a home. For millions of Canadians, the question has literally become about finding a place to sleep for the next month and how to pay for it without going broke. This is far from the sunshine-filled utopia that Justin Trudeau promised 8 years ago when he was elected, and in fact it's becoming more of a dystopian nightmare every day, even as the government gaslights Canadians and pretends nothing is amiss and everything is fine. Each passing month seems to usher in a grim spectacle of escalating prices, shedding light upon the absurdity and exploitation going on in Canada's rental crisis. Low-income individuals and working families are especially vulnerable to being crushed by the current situation. Even if prices were to decrease, major Canadian markets are poised to remain prohibitively expensive, particularly for renters who consistently bear the brunt of the burden. Structural factors including inadequate wages and the prioritization of property investment perpetuate housing unaffordability, widening the chasm between homeowners and renters. Basically, landlords want prices to keep going up and renters have the opposite concern. The division between these two groups reflects broader class dynamics, with homeowners benefiting from special privileges and wealth accumulation, while renters struggle to secure stable housing. The housing crisis not only worsens existing social challenges, but also fuels new ones, from food insecurity to homelessness. Despite the federal government recently unveiling $99 million in new funding aimed at addressing rent affordability, it's merely a band-aid on a gaping wound. It falls short of addressing the substantial gap between affordable rents and individuals' earnings. The latest funding injection is set to augment the Canada Housing Benefit, providing direct rent support to low-income renters. However, Canada needs immediate actions to tackle the housing supply crisis, such as expanding non-market housing initiatives and scaling up rapid housing programs. Without swift interventions, cities like Toronto are likely to see more young families leave, and people will continue to emigrate out of Canada. Additionally, the federal government announced a 2-year extension to the ban on foreign nationals purchasing homes in Canada, aiming to ensure residential properties are utilized as dwellings rather than speculative assets. This won't actually do much and just diverts attention from the underlying issues plaguing the housing system, including zoning regulations, infrastructure funding, and lack of adequate rent protection measures. Canada has a pressing need for robust rent regulations. Without adequate protection against soaring rents, many Canadians are forced into horrible situations, sacrificing essentials and living in unsafe and unhealthy conditions. There needs to be strong rent regulation policies to address the affordability crisis. Among the best solutions to Canada's rental crisis is rent control, but provinces are moving slow. In fact, only 6 provinces have enacted rent regulation policies, and the existing regulations vary greatly across the nation. Politicians like Democratic Party leader Jagmeet Singh also have a conflict of interest, considering Singh's wife was found to be profiting from high rents. He has a vested interest in not coming down so his family can maintain their profits. Following a government asset review last year, it was revealed that Singh's wife possesses a rental property in Burnaby, British Columbia, from which she earns income. Singh, who represents the Burnaby South riding, relocated to the area with his wife Gurcharan Kaur Singh in 2018. This disclosure coincided with Singh's criticism of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, accusing them of favoring wealthy investors in the housing market. Singh expressed outrage over the escalating rental prices, highlighting the exploitation of housing as a means for rapid wealth accumulation by affluent investors. Was he angry at his own wife, too? According to disclosures dated June 23, 2023, pursuant to the Conflict of Interest Code for members of the House of Commons, Singh's spouse exclusively owns a rental property in Burnaby, British Columbia, with Singh acting as the guarantor for the mortgage. Furthermore, the sole anticipated income source for Singh's spouse for 2024 listed as rental income. A significant proportion of Trudeau's recently appointed cabinet members were found to be landlords or real estate investors, indicating a notable increase from the previous cabinet. This is no surprise considering the string of disturbing corruption scandals that have plagued the Trudeau regime since it took power in 2015. If things don't get under control, more and more of Canada is going to start looking like Brampton, with overcrowded and illegal hidden basement suites. Either real steps are taken with rent control, housing affordability and rental reform, or the poorest slums in Canada's tent encampments and the Trudeau towns that now dot many of our communities will continue to spread like an out-of-control virus. If you like this video and want to learn more about what's really going on in Canada, check out this video here. And if this video brought value to you today, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing the video. Thanks for watching.